Hi Science 7s. This video is going to be playing around with some candy. You can totally do this one with me if you'd like. All you need is some starbursts, some scissors, some wax paper, and a heat source. You may need parents to help you with this, and then also a little bit of aluminum foil. All right, we are doing the rock cycle today. So I have taken my starburst pieces and I have cut them up into quarters. So these are our minerals. These are what are going to be making up our rocks. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mix them around. This is a very similar process to what you would experience with wave movements, say in the ocean, pushing around sediments, and then eventually through deposition they are going to get deposited. So what you're going to do, warm your hands up a little bit, but you're going to take your minerals, your sediments, you're going to apply pressure just like how it would be if layers and layers and layers kept going on top of this, and the amount of pressure formed sedimentary rocks. So we have applied a ton of pressure, and this is what we get. We get sedimentary rocks. We can see the components of, we might be able to see the grains. If there was fossils in there, we would be able to see the fossils in here. But through pressure, we've created some sedimentary rocks. Now, I'm going to transfer it over to my heat source and heat it up just a little bit. Now imagine now the rock is getting more pressure applied to it and more heat applied to it. So we're going to heat it up a little bit.
12 seconds later.
So now over millions and millions of years, this rock, I'm going to cover this up, it is now has a ton of heat applied to it, and we're going to apply a ton of more pressure to it. Folding action happening. And we now have a metamorphic rock. It was sedimentary, but after intense heat and pressure, we now have a metamorphic rock, and you can see wave-like patterns, especially if it was to fold again. Put a lot of pressure on it. Metamorphic rock. Now, we are going to place our metamorphic rock on our heat source. I'm going to crank up the heat. Now, imagine this rock was now deep, deep, deep under Earth's crust, and we're going to let it melt.
Moments later.
So we still got it cooking here. It is still heating up. We can see that there is a bubble forming. So it's getting really, really hot. It was solid, now it's turning liquid. It's not quite melted 100% yet. So we'll give it a little longer to fully melt, to fully turn into our molten rock.
Later.
All right, we're getting really close. We've got so many more bubbles. It's getting so much hotter. Look at that magma. So now that our rock has melted, and it is liquid, molten rock, so we can call it magma, I'm going to, and we're going to do this carefully, so if you're doing this, you're going to have a parent or guardian do this, but we're going to move our molten rock to somewhere where it can harden, and we're going to let it cool and harden completely before we take it out.
Tomorrow for sure.
So it's been a while. I put it in the fridge so that it would cool, and you can see some of the aluminum foil stayed on, but this is now our igneous rock, and you can see, if we get close, you can see where the air bubbles are. So when these bubbles were created, when it was molten lava, when it was magma, when it hardens or when it cools down, those bubbles, those holes are still there. And so that's why you'll see a lot of holes or a lot of gas bubbles in igneous rocks. And then you could heat this up and apply more pressure and create another metamorphic rock. And then if you broke this up, so if we now broke this into different pieces, hang on. So I had to use a knife, but if we now broke that igneous rock up into pieces, so imagine we had weathering and we had erosion, and we now have sediments. We have now smaller pieces of rock fragments. And then we could, once these, they're too hard now, but these could then get smushed together under intense pressure to produce another sedimentary rock. And then it can go through the process all over again.